Good day, brothers and sisters. Today is a wonderful day, and for disclaimer of the show, I have to tell you right away that I identify as a lithium battery. Not just a regular lithium battery, but the battery that's being mined by the hands of the little African children, most likely trafficked there for workforce slavery. And as a result, I belong to a minority now, and my pronouns are ACDC. So I have two wonderful guests here, and I'd like to know you guys' pronouns as well. And this is strictly just for the safety factor, because, you know, the hate speech is coming. The new bill that Mark Carney is proposing, and it's championed by Sean Fraser. And that's sort of a segue to introduce the I told you so guest. I wish it wasn't I told you so guest, but it is Maxime Bernier here. Maxime, how are you, my friend?
Great. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here, and let's have a nice discussion because, this country is not going in the right direction and we need to fix that. I need you guys. I cannot do that alone.
Glenn, how do you feel about this?
Oh, it's amazing to be in the new Alex Saz studio here with the man himself, Mr. Maxime Bernier. It's been roughly over a year since we talked last. You are our number one guest, and it's fantastic to have you on because we really have to talk about all the problems Canada is starting to have. And we predicted that on the last show. We said Canada was set up for hell, and hell, here it is.
Well, actually, let me ask you this question. Is not as a politician, but as a human being, as a citizen of Canada, right? How do you, now that you observed this for the past few years, and Glenn will give you statistics about migration, people actually leaving Canada in tropes. Like, why do you still driven here? What keeps you stay in politics? What keeps you motivated? Because it seems like no matter how many times you tell them, no matter what actions you take, it seems like it's getting worse and worse.
Alex, you're right about that. It's going, and it will be worse in a couple of months and years ahead of us. But that being said, we need to be out there. We need to speak about our ideas and our policies. And I just want to say that for us, for the People's Party, the last election was it did not go well for us. Actually, it was very disappointing. As you know, we wanted to have a real discussion about immigration, a national discussion about immigration in the beginning of that electoral campaign, because 65% of the population is saying right now, enough is enough. We need to have a moratorium on immigration and starting the deportation. So knowing that we have a so huge support, and I said before the campaign and to my candidates, if we have a national debate on immigration, that will help us because we are the only party that is saying that moratorium, a pause on immigration. But as you know, Alex, that was not the campaign that we had. We had a kind of referendum on who will be the best one to deal with President Trump, Carney or Poliev, and that was all about tariff. And so that was the only subject, it was very hard for us to be part of the national debates. And also, I must admit, that was a little bit disappointing because at the election in 2021, we had 320 candidates all across the country on 338 ridings. At this election, we had 343 ridings, and we had only 249 candidates. 94%, in 94% of ridings, we didn't have a candidate. That means that, we had 0%, and people were not able to vote for the People's Party. And it happened, but what happened actually is we had candidates there, but at the last day to be registered a candidate, they resigned with no good reasons. So, we try to know why, but I think that these people were conservative supporter, and they told us that, they believe they believe in our ideas and all that, but at the end they decided not to run the last day, and we didn't have time to find other candidates. So I said to the team, we cannot afford that to another election. And now what we are doing right now, it's a restructuration of the party all across the country. And the good news is in our 249 candidates, 95% of them are staying. And so we need to find about 100 candidates all across the country, and I started that. So when the next election will come, we will give the opportunity to every Canadian to be able to vote for the People's Party. So put these two, the fact that we didn't have a candidate in every riding, and that election was not an election, a referendum. That's why our score went down. But that being said, speaking about immigration, you're right. You told me just before that now more people are leaving the country. You're right about these data, and actually I like it. The growth of our population was too fast.
A million people a year over the last 3-4 years.
Absolutely.
It's way too fast.
Too fast with people who didn't share our values. We must say it, people from India. We used to have people from India coming from the, high class, and they came here because they had a job, and, a Canadian entrepreneur wasn't able to find a Canadian for that job, so they came as economic immigrants. But the fake students, the fake Indian students, and they came here under a fake student's permit, and they wanted to stay here. So and they are stealing jobs from young Canadians. So that being said, when you have people from the third world coming to your country will become a third world country. And we know that with violence in our street, they are bringing their internal conflicts in their country of origin here in Canada. That's why we need to put our country first. And I said in the beginning, for immigration, we need to be sure to have a value test and asking each immigrant, do you believe in men and women are equal under the law? Do you believe in Charter of Rights and all our Western civilization values? We need to have a face-to-face interview with these new immigrants, and we didn't do that. So put all that together, the fact that we have too many people and a lot of them didn't share our values, and add to that also the Multiculturalism Act. Here in Canada, like in Europe, if you go in London, you won't recognize London or Paris.
Whoa, you're being racist now.
No.
According to the new hate bill.
Maxime is always a realist.
No, that's the reality.
No, I know.
The truth on the ground is, I train at the gym with a guy. He's from West Asia, Pakistani.
Yeah.
For years and years, I trained with him, and he was saying, wow, there's too many brown people here. Things are going, all people in his family are complaining. Some of the Indian fellas in the gym are complaining that, that they ruined the trucking industry, because you were saying before about fake this and fake that, fake IDs, people coming here, fake applications. Well, there's a lot of people who have fake driver's license, and this is why they were protesting in Ottawa last week.
Absolutely. But you're right about, migrants coming from India. We, at the last election, we had Jewish candidate, Protestant, Catholic, and we had a candidate from India, from different countries. And I can tell you, my candidates from India told me, Maxime, it's not the same the last 5 years. They said, I was working in the street 5 years ago and everything was okay. Now I can feel that people are looking at me in a different way, because we have too many of them, they came here, and because also we are promoting with the Multiculturalism Act, we are telling them, keep your culture, keep your values, come here and live in a ghetto in Brandon, Ontario, or Surrey, BC, and everything is okay. So we have more people who don't share our values, and we are telling them it's okay, and the federal government is giving them money to celebrate, for example, the Chinese New Year. I don't have anything about the Chinese New Year, but if you want to celebrate that, why me as a taxpayer will pay for that? The federal government must be there to promote our Canadian values, our identity, our culture.
Well,
there is not doing that.
Sorry to interrupt you, but according to the liberal government, right, identity is diversity.
You talked about that the last time.
Which is strong in minorities, right? So, that's why I'm saying you need to identify as the smallest minority now to have some sort of value in the eyes of the liberal government. but it seems like it's by intention, right? Like it's not like 2 years ago, a year ago, we had the show and we talked about it, and liberals still in power. We do not. Okay, do you still have, even though we can blame your candidates that quit, or we can blame the Conservative Party, do you still have actual faith in the election process in Canada?
Yes. What I don't like from the electoral process is two things. First, if you go and you vote, we need to see your face, and you need to have an ID with your address and your photo on the ID. And here in Canada, you can vote by having, for example, your hydro bill without any photo, and you'll be able to vote. That must be a change that we must do. Also, what I don't like is you can vote almost, I don't know how many times before the election day. The election day must be the election day, and the election day must be an holiday for every Canadian. So you vote, you have only that day, you don't vote before and all that, and you vote in person. So changing that instead of having 4 or 5 days that you can vote before the election, only one day, the day of the election. And also what we must do is to be sure to just stop the mail-in ballots. The fraud may happen in the mail-in ballots, because Elections Canada told us at the end of the election in 2021 that they didn't count about 100,000 ballots. And so mail-in ballots was an exception before. It was only for our Canadian forces who were in Germany and they wanted to vote during an election. Now it's open to everybody. So no more mail-in ballots, only one day, the election day. You come, you vote in person. We can see your face with your ID. If we do these changes, that would be a perfect system. But contrary to the US, we don't have the Dominion machines. We are counting votes by hands, and that's good. We need to keep that, and we have that at the federal level. So that's why I'm saying the fraud that happened in the US, we don't have that kind of fraud here, because we are counting votes by hands.
But I went to vote, right? And I went to vote, and the vote is in pencil. Number 2 pencil that could be erased and changed to whatever. Like I think you're allowed to vote with a pen, but if you ask for a pen to vote in, they give you a look like you're asking for heroin, and it's the wrong place. It's just down the hall.
You're right about that. If we do these kind of little changes, people will have more faith in our system.
Yeah.
And you're a victim of democratic fraud when you were supposed to have won the head of the Conservative Party many years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
You're a victim of it. Obviously, there's fraud in the democratic process going on in Canada too, not just south of the border.
But we had a fraud when I was running for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. You can find the Global Mail the Monday after the leadership review. That was a Saturday night in, I think it was in June 2017. And the people who had the right to vote at that time was only Conservative members. So they had at that time 250,000 Conservative members. And when they did the announcement, they said, we have a winner. We had 260,000 voters, 10,000 more than the number of members. And we destroyed the ballot. They said that. We destroyed the ballot. And the winner is Andrew Scheer with 51%.
That was the same night they destroyed the ballot?
Yeah, same night.
That's
you can find that video. Same night they said that. So that's why I said the Conservative Party of Canada is morally and intellectually corrupt. They don't promote conservative ideas. And Polyev is doing politics by polling and survey. So the problem that we have, the People's Party, is we always in advance of our time. When I spoke about immigration in 2019, they were saying, oh, he's racist. But at that time, we wanted to reduce immigration level to 150,000 a year with a value test. Oh, I was racist. Now our position is different because of that mass immigration. So nobody is able today to say that the People's Party is racist, because we were right. We wanted to stop that before, and they didn't listen to us.
Yeah, you were right back then about that, and you were also right about the COVID and the forced vaccines.
Yeah,
you were right about that too.
And now we can see with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in the U.S., he's doing the real science, and I'm very pleased because I think that the Trump administration, the big victory of Donald Trump for this mandate will be with Make America Healthy Again, will be with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's doing a big reform, no more big pharma, and so a real scientific reform. And for the vaccine, that's good news. Now it's banned for young people, and we have more and more information, and they're doing real science. I think President Trump will have a lot of difficulty for the economy. They have a huge deficit, a huge debt, but every Western countries, they have the same huge debt and huge deficit.
Just a quick little news flash. Somebody sent me Pete Hegseth, the new Secretary of War. Used to be Secretary of Defense, and then he changed the name to Secretary of War, which ruffled a few feathers. He called in all the generals, all the leaders of the American military from all around the world for a big meeting in Virginia early next week. Something big is coming down the pipeline. Okay, gentlemen, something big. And I was warned about this a little while ago. The end of September and October is going to be fireworks. Something is going to happen in the world.
Yeah, that's scary. We are the only party that was saying no to the war in Ukraine. And I'm a little bit disappointed with President Trump because during his campaign, he said that I can solve that war in one day when I'll be president. And he had a good meeting with President Putin. But now he's on the side of the European Union.
Flip-flopping, but he's done that purposely to keep people off guard.
I hope so.
He can't show his hands.
I hope so, because, I hope so. Because, and we in Canada, the federal government spent $22 billion that we don't have with the support of the conservative. It's our money. It's our taxes to Ukraine.
Ukraine. Okay, there's another thing, big guy. Listen to this. The last amount we sent them was 1 billion Canadian dollars. Here, we're going to help you out. $1 billion. And I just found out the other day, Ukraine is the fourth country in the world that has the largest amount of Bitcoin reserves. Canadian dollars are being funneled over to Ukraine, and they're buying investments with it, Bitcoin, to put in their treasury.
No, it's not even they just buying, because all that money they send, they're probably building factories. Like they call the mining factories where they mine Bitcoin. So it's probably located there. They're not just buying it.
But there's a lot of fraud also over there. We said that Ukraine is a democracy. Yeah, it's not a democracy right now.
Dictatorship.
Well, so is Canada. Like, how's Carney got elected? He got elected by what's the less than 0.04% of the population?
Yeah, I like that question, Alex, because it's a question of our democracy here in Canada and in Western countries. John Locke and all these intellectuals in the 18th centuries and 19th centuries, they want to get rid of kings and the clique of aristocrats at that time. And they created, that democracy with the constitution. And the constitution was there to limit the power of the state and to be sure that, we'll have equality of all citizens under the law. But when they did that, they feared that the democracy will become the tyranny of the majority. And they were right. Right now, it's not the tyranny of the majority, like you just said. It's the tyranny of a strong minority. So I will explain that. If you're in government and if you have a lot of budgets, a big communication budget or propaganda budget, you use that to manipulate the public opinion. And when you have the public opinion on your side, you can do what you want without respecting the Constitution, without respecting our rights. Look what happened during COVID-19. The federal government used the propaganda and these to try to manipulate, and they were successful. And when you had 65% of the population during COVID that were saying, yes, it's okay, the lockdowns are good, the curfew in Montreal here, it's good. They use fear and propaganda to manipulate the public opinion. And when you have that, you can do what you want. So that's why we don't have a democracy right now. We have a democracy that is managed by a minority that is very powerful, and if a government is able to manipulate citizens, they will be able to do what they want. And Carney did that pretty well at the last election. He used fear, and he used that against Trump. And, it's so bizarre because the federal, and I will end on that, the federal government did have ad in the US during the last electoral campaign saying to the US consumers, you know what Trump is doing to you when Trump is imposing tariffs. Trump is imposing a tax on you Americans. Big billboards across the US paid by us saying a tariff is a tax. But here in Canada, no, it's not a tax. No.
No, interprovincial tariffs you're talking about, where most Canadians didn't even know that they pay interprovincial tariffs. We're forced to pay higher for a good so the government can collect more GST, QST off of it.
And the federal government did impose tariff on goods that we imported from the US, but he was not telling the truth, saying that it's a tax on us. So,
and it's not true because actual inflation rates in America, that would increase the inflation, but the inflation rate in America is not going up.
Yeah.
So would you describe our government like a corporate fascism? I don't know if it's that sexy new world corporate fascism, right? I don't know if I'm embarrassing myself here, but I just did a show released a few days ago regarding the Roundup spraying in Canada. Apparently, we pay for it and display Roundup for whatever reasons, and it's actually one of the accelerates for the fires that we've been experiencing, right? We know for a fact that Roundup is been deemed poisonous down south, and a bunch of lawsuits that came out of it, billions of dollars. But yet, Canadian government continues to spray it, right? But then the blame ordinary citizens that just go for a walk. And they're spraying it indiscriminately via like helicopters and airplanes. On top of that, who pays for it? Taxpayers for it. Taxpayers for it. We actually pay to be poisoned. Why are they doing it? Because it creates a monoculture, right? So monoculture is good, has economic value for the timber industry, so we can export it down south. But it kills actually the environment. So under the guise of the green agenda that they're shoving it down our throat, they continue to spray it as if it's safe and effective. They always tells us it's safe and effective, but it's the corporation. And I looked into it, and you can look at the show. Who owns a buyer who bought the Monsanto, who created the Roundup, is almost 10% shareholder is BlackRock.
Yeah.
Which is the multinational corporation on top of that. And that's the majority shareholder. So our government makes a deal with the devil, which is a BlackRock, on our behalf, on our expense. And then they tell us to stay home because, we're the cause of the fires. So what's good for the corporate entities in Canada is no for the regular citizens. So that's that sort of dictatorship aspect of corporate dictatorship.
And we have climate lockdowns here in our country. And during COVID, I said that, I tweeted about that. I said, we have COVID lockdowns, but the next one to try to control us will be climate lockdowns. And that is happening in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia right now. They're telling...
See, Max, he's not right of center. He's right all the time. He's right versus wrong. He's in the game, people. You must have a crystal ball at home or something.
It's only common sense.
Yeah, it's a little vision of reality.
These politicians, establishment politicians, they don't have any common sense. And the way that they're speaking to people. Did you listen Pierre Poilievre during the last campaign? He was speaking like a robot. Why? Because he's doing survey to know what you want to hear. But after that, he's doing focus group to know which word to use. So in a sentence, he can have 2 or 3 slogans, like the one, fix the budget. So when Poilievre was saying fix the budget, what is that? If you want to have a fiscally responsible government, for you, maybe fixing the budget would be to cut spending and balance the budget in 1 year. But for a socialist, maybe fixing the budget, it's to have more deficit, and maybe, in 5 years we will get rid of the deficit. So with that fix the budget, it can please everybody. Like, when he was saying, my policy for immigration, it's a common sense policy for immigration. He used common sense again. But common sense for me, a policy on immigration is to have a moratorium on immigration. But maybe for another person, it's to open our doors to more immigrants. So that's why people are listening to these establishment politicians. What are you saying? Why you cannot speak like me and answer the questions? People are fed up, and I think our time will come. We had a tough election, like I told you before, the last election, but our time will come, and the People's Party will be there when Canadians are ready.
Maxime, I just want to ask you, how do you do this like face this every day when it's been said when it comes to democracy, you lose faith in democracy when you have a conversation with the average voter. So when you do that, when you're talking to Mr. and Mrs. Average all the time who are disengaged, disenfranchised, and disconnected from reality, how do you not just diss them for being like that?
You have a point there. The challenge that we have, and I believe in that, I believe that Canadians are intelligent. And, I just want them to go on our website and read our policies. And if they read that, they will understand. And usually we have the support but they have to take an action. But other politicians are looking at you like, adolescent. And they're speaking like you are an adolescent. And they use emotion to have your support. And that's why, they are able to be successful in brackets. But for us, I believe in people, I have faith in people. And yes, but by doing that, it will take more time. But when I'm able to convince one person to support the People's Party, usually that's a done deal for life, if I can express myself like that, because they understand. But the voters need to go on our website, need to read our policies, and the majority of them are not doing that. I agree with you. But when they're doing that, usually they will support us at every election.
Well, maybe we should have a couple of questions just to break into it so that they'll be more inquisitive and want to know and go on the website to see. One of the questions I had for you today was that Canada was a natural-based resource economy. Okay, natural resource-based economy. And for many, many years, and that's when Canadian standard of living was doing excellent. But example, after the last 10 years of this neoliberal, socialist, high taxes, red tape, permits, licenses, feasibility studies that takes way too long, what would you do to speed things up and get Canada back into the game of scoring because of all our natural resources? Second largest country in the world, and ranked 4 in the world of countries for the most amount of dollar value attached to all our resources together. But here's the big caveat. We have the lowest population of all the other countries that can score from their natural resources. So basically, we should all be fairly wealthy here.
Yeah, absolutely. What we must do is repeal all the bills that the Liberal government passed under Trudeau and also Carney to allow entrepreneurs to be able to exploit our natural resources. For example, the environmental test that you have to do when you want to start a mine or something like that. As you may know, the environment is a shared jurisdiction with provinces and the federal government. So we must have a radical decentralization of the federal government. So no more federal tests on environment. That must be the province. If a province said, okay, why the federal will redo the same job and we're going to wait a year or 2 years to have a permit?
More local, micro market.
Yeah, so the federal government must stop that. Because the environment, that must be the responsibility of the province, and also you must be able to, if you want to invest in mining or other industry, you need capital. But our legislation, you need to we need first of all to balance the budget. I said during the campaign, we can, at that time the budget, the deficit was $42 billion. Now we will know that this fall or in November. Carney said maybe the deficit will be $90 billion. So we need to cut the deficit, and by cutting spending. And after that, we need at the same time to be sure to cut taxes. I want to cut taxes, a flat tax on business at 10%.
There you go.
Every business, the
There you
big
go.
one, the small one. So you cut that. No more capital gain tax. No more. So it is counterproductive if you have a capital gains tax. We want people to be able to reinvest, have capital and reinvest. So that's our proposal. But we cannot do that before we balance the budget. And we can balance the budget in 1 year, because if you do that right now, you will increase the deficit, and more deficit will be more taxes or more inflation. So I don't want that. So we can do this reform the year after we balance the budget. That will attract investments. And yes, we need to acknowledge that, like you said, we are a natural resources economy.
You hear that? Common sense, people. Bringing Canada back up.
Well, you can probably save like $30-40 billion a year if you just stop sending it out.
But during the campaign, I said we are spending $26 billion a year on equalization payment. Quebec received $13 billion. I said we must cut that in half. So we'll save $13 billion. And, Quebec, they want to be a country with the PQ. The leader of the PQ said, we can be a country. But if you can be a country, the federal government and other provinces must not subsidize you. So if you do that, that would be the right incentive for Quebec and New Brunswick to have real economic policies that will bring growth and more economic values. So you can cut that. We can cut the money to, I said, Ukraine, $22 billion. We cut that. We can cut also the funding to First Nation. That's about $15 billion. So it's easy to balance the budget if you have the courage to do it without cutting services to Canadians.
It's like Danielle Smith said. She's the premier of Alberta.
Yeah.
She said, we're being taxed too much.
Yeah.
Send our money to Canada to be sent to Quebec to vote in Liberal governments that are against how Albertans make money. And it's funny that we're talking about the economy and how to balance the budget. Just 5 minutes before we started here today, this popped up by the Globe and Mail. PBO projects higher deficits and increased debt servicing costs as economic growth takes a hit. And it's just starting.
Yeah, it is. It is just starting. And actually, what will happen with that deficit of $90 billion this fall? The Bank of Canada will have to buy bonds because we are too risky as a country. And so they will have to buy bonds by printing money out of thin air, and that will create inflation.
Devalue our currency.
Devalue our currency, absolutely. And our purchasing power is going down. Our standard of living is going down. Don't ask why young people cannot first have a job and second buy a house. They cannot afford that. Yes, you had some data about Toronto. You told me that it's going down a little bit, the housing market over there. That's a good news for new owners, for new Canadians who wants to be part of that market and buy a house. But at the same time, the inflation is not 2%. The government is lying to us. The way that the government is calculating the inflation, if you use the same way the government was calculating the inflation in 1980, if you use the same formula than the one in 1980,
Use the same metrics, yeah.
the same metrics, the inflation today will be 6% instead of 2%. So what I'm telling you is, if you have a pension and your pension will increase by 2%, you're losing 4% a year. If you have a job and your boss is giving you 2% because you say, that's the inflation, but that's the the inflation calculated by the federal government. The federal government is lying because for him, if he's telling us the truth that the inflation is 6% and use the formula that the federal government used in 1980, the cost of pension and all that will be huge, and so they cannot afford that, but they don't want to tell us the truth. So they're saying, and they know that if everybody understand that the inflation is 6%, they will be mad at the government. So by lying, it's only 2% and inflation is good. No, inflation is not good. When you have inflation, your purchasing power is going down, your standard of living is going down. We need to change that. So I understand that people right now, they're looking at the federal government and they may say, what's happening? So if you want a real peaceful revolution, we are there, and that's why I'm in politics.
You were saying about even though when you get an increase in your income, since we have a progressive tax rate, a lot of times this increase pops you into a higher tax bracket.
Yeah.
So you're getting double whammied. You're going into a higher tax bracket means you're a good tax soldier. Now you're paying more. And also the value, what your units that you're getting paid, this Canadian currency units, is going down. So your purchasing power diminishes. Everybody sees the prices of everything going up. This is one of the reasons why I just saw it the other day, 75% of Canadians are cutting back on restaurants.
Yeah.
81% of younger people between the ages of 15 and 34 are cutting back. So there, 41% of Canadians now are not drinking or cutting back on their alcohol consumption, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And but not if you own a place that distributes alcohol, mind you. But so a lot of businesses are going to get hit because of this. This is just the beginning. It keeps snowballing, getting bigger and bigger.
And what is going up? Taxes. And taxes is not part of the calculation for the inflation. We are paying a lot of taxes. Maybe half of our salaries in tax. If you add, the municipal tax, the provincial tax, the federal tax, the consumption tax,
carbon tax,
it's about half of your salary. So we are like a slave.
You're working 6 months for free.
Yeah. So the first 6 months of the year, 100% of our salary is going to these governments. And the 1st of July, the federal government and all these governments, you can keep 100% of your salary. So it's a new way to, you back then you had slave and you tell them you must do that. Now they're telling you can do what you want, but we'll take 100% of your salary for the first six months of the year. That's why people are fed up. And I believe that revolution is coming, and that, and more people must be aware of all that. And they know when they're doing their grocery, they know that something is wrong.
All right, go ahead.
So we touched base on the house prices.
Yeah.
Looking at a website I follow, Visual Capitalists, the average house price in Canada, measured by the average medium income, family income that pays for the average price. Of the top 25 cities in North America, 3 Canadian cities are in the top 7 over expensive real estate for a simple house. It's Vancouver is number 1. After Vancouver, it's LA, number 2. Number 3 is Toronto, 1 and 3, right there. And everybody says, oh, well, Montreal, the real estate prices are so much easier. They're better. Yeah, they are better than they are in Vancouver and Toronto, but they're still ranked number 7 of 25 big cities in all of North America. So let's face it, the average Canadian has most of their wealth in real estate.
Yeah.
What happens when their real estate really takes a bad hit, is not worth that? Or there's another thing that maybe it's in the government's plan, is to create inflation, devalue the currency, so that if your property is worth, let's say, $1 million today, 4 years from now, it's still going to be worth $1 million. So people say, no, I didn't lose any money.
Yeah.
Yes, but 1 million devalued purchasing units 4 years from now means you could be losing 25-30% of the value.
Yeah. To know that, you just look at the price of gold. 25 years ago, to have a house, you needed to have, I don't remember how many ounces of gold. But that's the same thing today. So gold is telling you the inflation. That's why the price of gold and silver is going up, because of all these government. They have huge debt, huge deficit, and that they cannot afford. You know, the federal government in the U.S. is almost broken. Almost, yeah, almost.
$37 trillion of debt.
Yeah. And so the interest on the American debt, it's the budget of the national defense over there. That's the budget of the national defense. So don't ask why Trump wanted to have lower interest rate. It's not because he wants Americans to pay lower interest rate. It's because of his debt. He cannot afford, the federal government in U.S. cannot afford high interest rate because the cost of their interest on their debt will be too huge. So that's why the pressure is there. So when the interest rate is going down, they don't fight inflation. So the inflation will go up. Who's going to pay? Us. Every citizen in America, in Canada, it's the same also. Our interest rate went down. The Bank of Canada just lowered the interest rate, but the inflation will go up. And so, like you said, we are losing our purchasing power.
Just to give the viewers a little perspective on the American debt, just paying the interest on that debt, you said it's about equal to all the American defense spending every year, right? Our viewers should know that American defense spending is more than the next 9 biggest countries combined.
Yeah.
And that's just paying off a debt. So things are looking a little rough south of the border too.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be blamed on Mr. Trump.
No.
No. That was well before him.
Absolutely.
So he's doing...
But he tried. He tried to manage the deficit with Doge. You know, that wasn't a huge success, but at least they did some
Well,
cuts.
what happened to that? Well, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought it up. I didn't even think of that. And that you seem to have, especially in the beginning of this conversation, a lot of faith in people like RFK, right?
Yeah.
And the same way Trump was coming into election, I'm going to stop the war in 24 hours. I'm going to release Epstein list. And now Epstein list doesn't exist. The war is still going on. They bombed Iran on top of that, on behalf of the foreign nation, which we cannot mention on this show. But
Which one?
And poor Charlie Kirk.
Exactly. Here's the point, and I think this is how I want to segue into this subject. We started with this. I started the show with this.
That's your show,
The
Alex.
premise. I started the show with the premise that me and the party present here, that I consider my friends, very close friends, what we're doing now is exercising our right, our freedom to expression, right? And what this government is doing, which is many governments, Commonwealth governments, have done already, is trying to implement this thing called hate speech. And Sean Fraser just pushed that forward a few days ago, this bill that will effectively, most likely, will put this show in the jeopardy, and it will prevent us from having this kind of discord and this conversation. And if we want to mention Charlie Kirk, doesn't matter which way, which side of Charlie Kirk conversation you would take. One thing he said that all of us can relate to: if the conversation becomes violence, like if people get offended and they consider it as some kind of verbal abuse, then violence becomes conversation. And without looking into conspiracy theories or other options and who killed Charlie Kirk and why, result is still the same. He's dead, right? So Canadian government may or may not. I don't know if we have Epstein here in Canada. That's something we can do the whole show probably, or a person like Epstein that compromises our government. But the disturbing part is that Carney, I saw that before Sean Fraser, he came out and he made this statement about protecting Canada.
Also, Mr. Carney was supposed to be a frequent flyer to Epstein Island, by the way.
And there's
supposed to be. Not saying, free speech, but we heard news.
But here's what he said.
Online platforms have become seas of racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate in all its forms. And they're being used by criminals to harm our children. My government will act. And today we're announcing our plan to fight crime, to protect Canadians, and to build communities that are safe, secure, and strong. A plan to make Canada secure, to make Canada strong.
By safe and effective government, right? Government is so safe. So they are so safe and effective. Did you see what they did just a few days ago? They did this.
All those opposed to the motion will please rise.
They've repealed the bill that the Conservatives were trying to push through, the criminal reform bill.
Yeah.
All of the Liberal Party just opposed it. It makes zero sense, other than there's some malevolent stuff going on. If let's say 2.5, what was that 2 weeks ago? The pedophile that they got caught in with a 3-year-old, he was out on bail after 2-year sentence.
No, he was. Yeah, he broke into a house to have.
And the police tell us, give your keys. If you have somebody who's coming to your house, you don't fight against that person. And that's crazy. But yes, go ahead. Sorry.
There's another thing. They're saying, if somebody, there's a big car theft going on, so make it easier for them to steal your keys.
Yeah.
So put your keys at the front door.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd put a map of the house and tell the would-be robber where the keys are, okay? And follow the dots and follow the line. I'll make a left here, and then boom, got you. But what we were talking about before was the poor girl. A guy breaks into a house to have to sexually molest a 4-year-old girl, and he got caught. But another tragedy involved was the man was just convicted of doing the same thing in 2021, and he got 18 months for sexually perversion of a child.
Yeah, saying the minor on top of that, right? And he's out now. If he's out on 18 months, you know what the penalties are that they're proposing for what we're doing here? Just having a discussion. Let's watch this clown.
Tabled a bill in the House of Commons to help protect Canadians against hate.
It's Sean Fraser.
One of the great promises of Canada is the ability of our citizens to live freely.
Minister of Justice, right?
Regardless of the color of their skin, the God they pray to, or the person that they love. Sadly, too many Canadians are robbed of these freedoms that so many of us take for granted. Frankly, the prevalence of hate crimes in this country that steal those freedoms are something that should shock the conscience of every Canadian. It is disheartening when you read
How do you steal freedoms by hate crime? Explain that to me.
Yeah, first, we don't need that bill C9. We don't need it. We have in our criminal code, a section against hate crimes. That's it. About, hate speech, that's okay. That's free speech. When you have free speech is to protect the speech that you don't want to hear. That's free speech. It's not to protect, a nice speech that you like. The free speech, it's allowed people to be able to say something that you won't like. So why having a legislation against hate speech? We must not have that. We must, because it's a way to try to control people and telling them, look what is happening in UK right now. You have a lady that said something, somebody didn't like what she said, and that person made a complaint to the police, and she had the police at her door doing an investigation about that. That bill C9 will give the power to police to the police to be able to, if they receive a complaint about Bernier said that, all these fake students, Indian, must not be here in Canada. And I'm pretty sure that they don't like that, these fake students, Indians. And so maybe they can go to the police and say, Bernier said something, and I'll have the police at my door telling me, and you must stop that. You must apologize. In a free society, it's okay to have hate speech because it's in line with the freedom of speech and free speech.
What if I take it to the next level? I tell you, there is no hate speech.
Yeah,
there's a disgusting speech. There's evil speech. There's speech that you don't like.
Yeah.
But it's a free speech.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, and for us to know and discern and to know good from evil, sometimes we need to hear evil.
Yeah.
We can't be constantly. We don't live in a baby state. Plus, who are you to determine?
Yeah.
What is hate speech? Remember during the protest, the chocolate protest, they determined that was a hate thing.
Yeah.
They put in, and also they put in a fake guy with the swastika in there.
Yeah.
And part of the, catch this, part of this thing is hate, that new bill they're trying to put through is the symbols.
Oh, yeah.
So the swastika symbol.
Yeah.
And also it's a old SS symbol, and also altered symbols that represent some sort of terrorist organization. So, for example, we've been, and I'm not taking sides here. This is just information. The Palestinian flag could be considered on the spot by a police officer as a hate speech.
Maxime,
But,
what do we have going on in Canada here right now? You have everybody protesting about bad things that are going on in other countries. You have the Palestinian flag being waved. You have the Ukrainian flag being waved.
Where is the Canadian flag? And that's why I said,
Yeah.
I'm not pro-Ukraine. I'm not pro-Israel. I'm not pro-Palestine.
You
I'm
are?
pro-Canada. And that's it. And when they're doing that, it's because they're not part of our country. When I said they are bringing their internal conflicts from their country of origin here in our streets, we must not have that. But speaking about hate speech and the the sign that can be, hate sign like Nazi and all that. 6 years ago, they said, because I was speaking about immigration, they were saying that I was a racist, like I told you. So if we had that legislation at that time, okay, Bernier is a racist. He doesn't have the right to speak about lowering the level of immigrants. And maybe the PPC sign and the PPC logo, he cannot use that because it's hate speech. So in 2019, the journalists were saying that I was a racist at that time. So if you're a racist, what is coming from your mouth must be hate speech. So, that legislation will give the power to police and the government to go in your house and say you don't have the right to say that, something that, is based on facts, like it was when I was speaking about mass immigration. It was based on facts, and they didn't want to hear that. They didn't want to have a debate about that. So we don't need that legislation. It's against our Charter of Rights, and you're right about it. There's no such thing as hate speech, only free speech.
Since we're talking about laws for social cohesion, seems like Canada, as in so many European countries, we have an increase in violent crime.
Yeah.
Okay, that's knivings, shootings, rapes, sexual assaults, high-end thievery going on, like fancy cars getting ripped off and everything. If you were to take a lot of European people's word of advice, it seems like the criminal intent is increasing more with the immigration.
Yes.
Is there a similarity? But you believe there's obviously
But when you have
reason.
migrants who don't share your values, when you have people coming from a third world, your country will become a third world country. So if they don't share your values, absolutely. Social cohesion. When Amazon, a lot of people are ordering on Amazon and they are coming at your door. They put the little package at your door, taking a photo. Now it's risky. Before that, you don't think about that. You're not at home. You'll be there at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock after your work. You take your package and that's it. But now there's a risk that somebody will come and take your package, stole your package. So the society is changing because you have people who don't share your values. I won't take, the package of somebody in front of their door, but people coming from other countries who don't share our values, they will take it. And that's happening right now here in Canada.
See that big guy? Every house needs a Rottweiler now.
I'll tell you more, Maxime. Okay, so I had this interaction with the local representative, and this is not federal politics. This is local municipal politics. There's a lady here. Maybe she's a nice lady. Maybe she's not. But she was running for a local council for the Projet Montréal. That's the Valerie Plant's
Yeah, the
person.
socialist,
The socialist
municipal political party.
So I live here in a nice house, right? Nice property. This is a nice neighborhood, all genderfied, and most likely we are the reason why it's genderfied. But it's been a nice area for a while. So a few weeks ago, I started noticing that my outside hose is leaking in the morning, and I'm like, what's going on? So the following day, I noticed that there's two garbage bins that are locked up and screwed in, just wired shut and like a bicycle lock to the street sign. So I realized it's probably a homeless person's personal belongings. And then I put two and two together. This person is using my water source, which I'm not against. If he really needs it, just ask me. I know you're in a disadvantaged situation. Long story short, I let it get away for like 2 days. On the third day, he made a camp outside the house, literally on the lawn, right next to the house. So I have kids in the house. I didn't feel safe in the sense that not that I couldn't do anything, but I just didn't want to, right? Like I will be a hate criminal doing something about a homeless person. I called the police. Police said, oh, he needs to sleep. He'll leave tomorrow morning. We talked to him, right? And then I see this lady running for council, and I asked her, like, well, all questions aside, regardless of what you want, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about the camp going onto the highway just 2 blocks away from here? There's a humongous homeless camp in Verdun, near Verdun Beach, all on the river.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of homeless, and it's not just a simple camp. Those established camps, you can see it in St. Henry off the highway. You see a humongous camp that turned into a bicycle junkyard, probably stolen bike junkyard. You go to the east on Notre Dame Street. That's all homeless camps everywhere. So ask the ladies, like, what are you going to do about the homeless camps? And they're like, well, where are they supposed to go? That's literally the question that she asked me. Is like, and she's like, but she wants me to talk to her to see if she's a nice person, because I want nice people like Trudeau and Sean Fraser in the government, that the people like, they smile to your face, but they stab you in the back with the socialist programs.
Yeah. Oh, you have a point there. All these camps must be dismantled. That's it.
Maxime, the federal government has no money for all these people. Let's say they have social problems, right?
Yeah.
That's how
Oh,
that's how they end up homeless.
But the provincial government has enough money to give to big corporation, and they're losing money, subsidies to corporation. That's another thing that we want to do. We'll cut all the subsidies to every corporation. So they have money for big corporation, but they don't have money for the basic.
Then
They
you'd
have
be
money
able
for
to-
They have money for Ukraine.
Then you
Yeah, they have money for Ukraine.
But then after cutting the subsidies, you'll be able to cut the taxes for the big
Yes.
corporations that make them produce
It will
more.
be safe for everybody. Why, a little business here in Montreal, mom and pop shop, cannot have a big subsidies like Bombardier or GM, but they're paying taxes. So by cutting all the subsidies to every business, and after that, you use the money that you save to lower the tax rate at 10% for everybody. That's a fair policy. And you said before, they're taxing us. We have huge tax rate, but the goal to have our tax system, our income tax system, is for the rich to pay more. I'm okay with that. But if you have a flat tax on income at 10% for every Canadians, 10% of $1,000, it's $10. 10% of $100,000.
Yeah.
100
will be 10,000.
Yeah, will be 10,000.
Yeah.
So the rich would pay more with a flat tax. You don't need to have different
It's like
tax brackets.
But that's, Glenn, that's going back to you. You always said that. Why don't we just have consumption tax?
Yeah, that's the best
one
tax.
flat rate. Everybody is equal. That's it. The guy who has the money to buy the Lamborghini, well, you're going to pay your 30% tax on that car. And the person, like everybody else who buys the Honda, well, you're going to pay your 30% on the price of the Honda.
So do we agree, at least do we have a quorum here that what we're observing here, because it's such a common sense to most people, and those people in position of power, like going back to Carney, I don't really want to mention his name or give him more room on this platform. they have common sense, but they also have an agenda. Like they know they've been around for too long. So either he's compromised himself or he's the compromiser or whatever he's doing. He's a pawn, etc., etc. He is what, remember the latest female, what's her name? Liz Truss. She was the latest female prime minister of UK, right? Her greatest thing, her greatest thing was she ushered the death of the Queen. I think that's why she was there. She gets elected, and in 2 days, Queen dies. But this is what she had to say. I mean, she's a victim, and she blames.
Oh yeah.
She blames everybody. But this is funny.
I think it is extraordinary that Mark Carney has become the Prime Minister of Canada. He did a terrible job in Britain of the governorship of the Bank of England. He created a lot of the problems that blew up on my watch and that I got blamed for were actually created by him. He backed Labour in the election and Rachel Reeves's policies, which are leading the country to bankruptcy. So why on earth the Liberal Party of Canada has selected this man, I have no idea. And I think,
and that's actually a good question. Like even though he's sort of Canadian by citizenship, he had nothing to do with Canada in the last while. He's never been a member of the government on any level.
Yeah,
He's been in charge of the federal banks that are failed. There's a rumor that he's a bankruptcy trustee of the BlackRock or the equivalent of that in Canada. And I mean, it's a rumor. I can't confirm that. I don't want to spread fake news. But the idea is like going back to the election process, going to where our politics is, where our people are, where our people's heads is. Like at this point, I believe, especially here in the East, like I cannot speak about the West. I spend most of the time in the East, like from Toronto eastwards. People are kind of in survival mode.
Yes.
And
same thing in Western Canada also.
This is Western Canada. It's the same thing, right? So people worry about their daily lives most so they can see the larger picture. So we need shows like ours, and we're not the only ones. There's plenty of shows out there in Canada that are in jeopardy. Already, like if you go on Google, for example, on YouTube, and you search some information, the only sources of information that pop up is legacy media, anything that's sponsored by the government taxpayer. So obviously it's not going to be speaking disparagingly about the issues or the government itself, right? It's always it's almost like they're trying to destroy Canada in a way to actually speed up the process of uniting it into some kind of North American union with the United States. Because if everything fails, like if our economy crashes like Soviet Union crashed in the 90s and the ruble became devalued, it was a hyperinflation and people that had everything end up having nothing. The only way they could do it is by joining forces with each other and everything else. Are you afraid of something like this that may happen here?
No, I believe that. Let's be honest. I was in Calgary last weekend. I did deliver a speech over there in a conference called We Unify, and a couple of people were speaking over there. We had about 400 people there, and I can tell you that it is the opposite. People in Alberta, they're fed up and they're ready to separate. If you look at the polls in Alberta, there's 25% of Albertans are saying, I want Alberta to be an independent country. Why? Because of the policies coming from Carney and the Conservative. And the Conservative is taking the vote of Westerners for granted. We need and the federal government that is telling them everything that they can do or cannot do as a province. So you have that resentment in Alberta. And now they will have a referendum on the secession in 2026. And I don't know if they will win it, but people are fed up with the federal government. So instead of having a new supranational government, I believe that you may have an independent Alberta. And here in Quebec, we know that the PQ is ahead in the polls. Legault is going down. And Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, a young, charismatic leader, and is winning. And I believe that he will be able to win the next election in October 2026. But also he's telling Quebecers, If I win, I will have another referendum in a year. So what my fear is to have maybe 2 referendums, and I don't know what will happen with our country. So, and it's very different. And if they have a referendum in Alberta, you have the U.S. and the Secretary of State that will be for the separation. Remember, in the referendum in Quebec in 1995, the yes side has 49% of the vote. But the U.S., the government in the U.S., the Secretary of State in the U.S., they were for Canada, and they were saying to Quebec, if you're winning your referendum, you won't have access to our market, and that will hurt. We don't want an independent Quebec. Now the Secretary of State and Trump, they're okay with that. So if they have a referendum, they will say, if you're independent, we may be able to have a new deal with the U.S. And so I don't know what will happen. I don't know if they will win their referendum or not. But I don't like the fact that separatism in Quebec and in Alberta is growing because of that big, fat interventionist government in Ottawa that is not respecting our Constitution. That's all the problem that we have. So instead of having one new country after that, I believe that, the recession is there. I believe that we will have a stagflation, so recession and inflation. That will be more difficult for everybody. The inflation will be high. And maybe people will look at a new alternative. And I hope the new alternative for them will be the People's Party, because we have the solution to solve that. And it's sad that in Alberta, they're mad. And in Quebec, I don't know what will happen, but I'm concerned about that. And I said at the last election, we are the last hope for this country. If our ideas are not adopted at the federal level, we can say goodbye to this country. We can say goodbye to our standard of living. We can say goodbye to our prosperity. And now Carney is just showing that I'm right with that huge deficit, more taxes, more inflation. We are not going in the right direction. And I hope that more people will be aware of that. And when the time will come at the next election, we'll see what will happen. But there's a risk in Alberta and Quebec because of the federal government. And why the PQ is popular in Quebec? It's because of Trudeau, because of mass immigration. The leader of the PQ is the only one who's speaking like me on immigration. And I understand that Quebec is a nation or distinct society. There's francophone here with a minority anglophone, so they want to keep that culture,
Protect their culture.
Yeah, protect their culture. So with mass immigration, now Quebecers are looking at that. I want that to stop. And so the leader of the PQ is speaking, we will stop that mass immigration. We will bring back our culture. So that's why he's popular. But because of Trudeau, like the PQ was popular when René Lévesque was the leader, because of Trudeau. So if the separatist movement is rising in Quebec, it's because of what Trudeau did with his bad policies. And it's because of Trudeau also that the separatist movement is rising in Alberta. They cannot exploit the natural resources, like we said. They're mad about the equalization. Poilievre is not speaking about that, but Western Canada are paying for Eastern Canada. We need to change that. I'm the only leader who said, let's have a new formula. Let's be less generous. Let's push, speaking about the real challenges that we have. But Poilievre doesn't want to speak about that because it's not popular to speak about cutting equalization in Quebec or New Brunswick. But I started to speak about that 10 years ago, and I said I'm not proud Quebecers when Quebec received equalization money. Quebec must be a rich province, and we must not receive equalization money. So let's have that discussion. But Poilievre and Carney won't have that discussion. In out west, they're mad at it. They're fed up of paying billions of dollars to Quebec, and they don't believe that Quebec is a poor province. And I don't believe that Quebec is a poor province.
Poorly managed.
Yeah, poorly managed. You're right about it. And we are a poor province under the equalization formula because all the income coming from the hydroelectricity, it's not part of the formula. But all the income to the federal government coming from the oil and gas industry, it is part of the formula. So the formula is unfair. And that's why Quebec is a poor province since the creation of that program. We must end that. But that's our proposal. And so that's why you have these two separatist movements in Alberta and in Quebec. And we have the solution for that. But in Ottawa, they like the statu quo.
Wow. Big guy, it's like a war of truth bombs being dropped right here in this studio.
I'm glad you mentioned war of the truth bombs, because I think that's I'm going back to the theme of this show, is that this discussion that we're having, this is a logical discussion. It's not a secret that I call CJD the only English speaking
Radio station.
in Montreal, right?
Yeah.
So oftentimes I listen to just to catch up on what they saying is the news, right? So like just to be upbeat with what the left is saying, right? Because let's face it, that's as left as it gets.
And in French, it's the same also with 98.5. I don't know what. It's all leftist. Yes.
It's all leftist, right? So one time I called, and I don't even remember who the host was, and I just wanted to mention, like, they were talking about housing crisis, and I said, well, you can't speak about housing crisis without mentioning immigration crisis, right? They hung up on me right away. Because they didn't want to hear the development. So what I'm saying, this is what they're trying to do with the bills. They're already doing it. Well, I forgot the name of the bill, the one that they're pushing Canadian content creators first, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it's not really that. It's just to push outlets like CTV, CBC forward. And I have an honest fear, because this is how I make a living. Like I'm the voice, not just on this podcast, but I produce podcasts for other people, and I constantly in a connection. And some of my friends who are in this, they stopped talking politics altogether, because first of all, they want to make money, they want to still make a living. But I'm saying, like, well, if you do this now, and if they come after you for hate speech for saying this, what is the next thing they're going to come after you? It's becoming a dictatorship. So I don't know, like, if we can talk about like a larger political issues without like talking about the elephant in the room, where we don't really have basic freedoms in Canada anymore. And also in terms of my personal experience, I drove from Montreal to Calgary last year, and I took Route 17, the most beautiful ride. Brothers and sisters, if you never driven anywhere in Canada, this is the one I recommend 100%, just to see the beautiful country that you live in. And also you'll get a sense of resource-rich land that we'll live on. Mountains, forests, fields, lakes, fresh water. We are abundant with resources in this country, and you'll get a first sense when you drive it. And also another sense that I got when you're driving west is if you're living, like when you live in Quebec and Ontario. By the way, it takes 3 days to drive across Ontario, and you live in like a big mall. Like it feels like east is just a consumption. This is where people, it's just like a big mall of Canada. You don't see anything produced, but more west you go, you actually start to see production. You see farms, you see factories, you see mines, you see all of that. And what else was back to immigration, even all the way up north Ontario, any motel, any hotel, any gas station, any convenience store that I stopped on the way was either owned, or in Tim Hortons, the coffee shops, either was owned or operated by the Indians.
You know, I have an anecdote on that. During the campaign, I was traveling across the country, and, you know, from Halifax to Victoria, and building the party, meeting our candidates, having some debates over there. And I was with a young guy that was traveling with me, and he doing my videos. And so at the end in the middle of the campaign, the joke was, okay, at, like you said, Tim Hortons, gas station, hotel, you know, when you want to register at an hotel, the reception of an hotel, it was all brown people. So when you have 1 million people, I don't have anything, but when they are coming here and taking the jobs of Canadians, because that is what is happening. They're taking the jobs of young Canadians that cannot have these jobs. And the federal government is giving subsidies to Tim Hortons, and Walmart for having them. We are paying for that as a taxpayers. We must cut these subsidies, and we must also be sure that that's why the temporary foreign worker programs must end. And I said
immediately.
Yeah, I said that more than a year ago. But 2 weeks ago, Poliev said, yes, we will end the temporary foreign workers. But for him, it's only a slogan. because a journalist, actually from the Global Mail, did a good job. He said, "Okay, what do you mean by that? What is a process?" So he called his office, and they said, Polyev said that he will end the temporary foreign workers program. I want to have more details. How are you going to do that? And actually, the real answer is he will have a transition period of 5 years. A transition period of 5 years, and he wants to do consultation with big businesses. So he's not working for Canadians, he's working for businesses. You don't need to have a transition period. You end it right now, and you keep only one part for the agricultural sector. That's it. No temporary foreign workers. And if a corporation is not able to have a Canadian for a job, I have two advices for them. First, they can increase the salary. Maybe they will have more Canadians that will come. And if they're doing that and they don't have Canadians, they can go on the automation. So that's the solution. It's not cheap labor. And that program is cheap labor for big corporations. And that's why you're seeing all these Indians across the country in these jobs. So let's end that. But Polyev, again, he doesn't want to have that he wants to have that discussion with big businesses to be sure that he will please them. For me, we must end that right now without any compromise.
Well, Mr. Bernier, you've been on for a little over an hour now. So, and we could just keep going. More truth bombs, more solutions to all the problems that we have here.
Because we have a lot of problems and challenges. Yeah.
I just wanted to let the people listening to us hear something very, very important. Facts don't lie, but the media does.
Yes.
Do not allow yourself to be indoctrinated into false beliefs. This is a problem that's happening in society. It's been happening for a long time, and it seems to be getting exponentially worse.
Yeah.
Also, it's quite obvious that you're not feeling 100% today, and you're still here. Big Alex, most politicians would be down south, taking a week off, I don't feel good, this, that. But Mr. Bernier, he's a man on a mission. He's goal-orientated, and nothing is going to stop him. That's why he's here today, feeling under the weather, but delivering left and right hooks like there's no tomorrow. Truth bombs coming everywhere. It's amazing. I just have one more question for you.
Yes.
When you look around what's going on in society, you think you're in times of tribulation. Evil events are rising at alarming speed, the rates of bad things happening. It's like you would almost think that we are entering the time of the Great Rapture.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, for us here in Canada, what would Canada's new Commander-in-Chief, Mr. the Honorable Maxime Bernier, do to make Canadians safe again and to make Canada great again?
You just have to believe in people, and you just have to remember that the federal or any government cannot do good for you. You know what they did with COVID? So the problem is the big government that we have in Ottawa, big governments that we have at the provincial level. When I'm saying that I believe in people, it's the four principles, founding principle of the People's Party of Canada: individual freedom and personal responsibility, respect and fairness. When you are free, you must be responsible of your action. So if you want to have a better country, we need everybody to be able to participate. That means right now, you have a big gap between the rich people and millionaires and billionaires and the population. And you have that because of our system right now. We don't have a capitalist system anymore. It's crony capitalism. The federal government is geared to give gifts and subsidies to big business. We need to end that. So the solution is to have a very small government in Ottawa, believing in people, more deregulation, radical decentralization, and we can do that. But I cannot do that alone. And I'm looking at you. We spoke about the mainstream media, and the mainstream media is lying to us. Our government is lying to us. But at least we have you guys. We have, the independent media. We have podcaster, YouTubers that are out there. And I remember a discussion that I had with Jordan Peterson. And I said to Jordan, that was a couple of years ago, I don't know what to do. I cannot be in the mainstream media. They are canceling me. And do you have any ideas? And what I must do to be on the mainstream media, on TV? And he said, Maxime, forget it. They're the past, and their credibility is going down every year. So you must do podcasts. You must be with your people. You must be on the street. That's what we are doing. But we need to have that common sense, peaceful revolution. People needs to ask the real questions, having the debates. And if they believe in something and they keep their ideas from themselves, nothing will happen. You need to have the courage of your conviction. You need to be out there and to have a discussion with your friends and with family about what you don't like in the society. So that's why I believe we'll have a great future. Our time will come. But and when I'm traveling across the country, I'm meeting a lot of people, and more of them are coming from different political backgrounds, from the Green Party of Canada, from the Conservative Party, from the Liberals. And we can have all these people coming and supporting us because we are telling the truth based on facts. And that's ideas that, are the base of the Western civilization values. So I believe that, what I can do, be out there, promote our ideas, having debates, and, these changes will come.
That's an amazing point. All I heard is peaceful revolution, and I agree. That's we only promote here peace on the show. Never condone violence in any way. But I heard something on TV recently, and
are you still watching the TV? I don't.
No, by TV I mean somewhere on the media. I heard.
I'm teasing you. Yeah.
But the back to your TV remark, and we're going to close on this. The statistic came out. The majority of the people that still watch the TV is 55 plus. So you're right. It is in the young people, and the young people don't watch TV at all. They're on this on the smartphone devices, etc. What's happening in Asia right now? What's that country where they just had a revolution? Somewhere there in the Himalayas. They burned the government. They killed a few people, etc. Again, I'm not condoning or promoting any kind of violence, but I heard on the radio or on one of the podcasts before that people losing faith in the peaceful revolution. And if you look throughout the history, there hasn't been many regime changes. You can name one if you want that drastically changed the policies. Most of the change happened gradually for the worse. For example, we had the show about the Yuri Bezmenov. Remember the KGB guy who came in and said, we're just going to plant a whole bunch of socialist communists into your universities, and it'll take 1 or 2 generations to change the groupthink.
To Marxist-Leninists.
To Marxist-Leninists.
Yeah.
And it's happened. So, brothers and sisters, my thing, it's a long game.
Yeah.
It's not, it took many generations to get where we are now. Let's unwind it. We can't bring it back. We can bring the faith back into the people. We can bring faith back into the system again with the help of people like Maxime Bernier and having a freedom expression that we exercise in here at Alex Saz Show. And we're not the only show. There's plenty of people that make a lot of sense. So my advice to the listeners is stay patient.
Yeah.
Stay patient, stay peaceful. You don't need to change everyone's mind. Just share all the information and somebody if not listening. I think the time of trying to convince somebody to tell them this is what it is, you're missing the elephant in the room. I think it's gone. I think it's past that point. I think some people that are far gone, they have some game, some foot in the game, that they have a lot to lose, and maybe they won't change their mind or they don't see it. It doesn't matter. Those are not the people. You focus on you and impact your immediate surrounding, impact your family the best way you can, but it's not just about what you say on camera or what you say in public. It's how you live your life. Glenn, and what would be your advice to the listener now, like in your daily
the young
people specifically, like how can you bring up the change in your life that will affect change in the country.
Are you ready?
Yeah, we're
Always with you, yes.
ready.
Fathers and mothers parent differently. Agreed?
Mhm.
100%.
Fathers are more logical. They're usually impose discipline. They're a little bit more stricter. They tend to put up with less shenanigans. Mothers are more caring, nurturing. So with the breakup of the families, we have the future young men, supposed to be future leaders. There's a big problem. They've been overmothered and underfathered.
Yeah.
So this is a big problem that's permeated into society. So by having more weak men, governments are able to take more power away from the populace. So to you young men out there, I would say you need to spend more time for self-reflection. Through self-reflection, you'll increase your own level of self-awareness, where you are in society, how you think.
Yeah.
Then you'll start having your own aha moments. I have to change. And then you start looking for mentors and motivators to help you along. And I would say sitting right in front of me today is one of those mentors and motivators, Mr. Maxime Bernier. Proud to be sitting in front of you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maxime. And it's all women's fault. Is as Glenn summarized it. But I agree with you, Glenn. It takes a man to raise a man. And there are some really good mothers too, but it's not the same. I cannot raise my daughter to be a princess because I'm not a woman. But at the same time, Maxime, thank you so much for coming. We always have to share.
Yeah, I want to thank you for giving me that opportunity to speak to your viewers and share, our ideas. And, if they want to know more, they can always go on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca. We are the only national political party that is having our policies on our website. And if you're interested in our policy, for example, on climate change, it's only 2 pages. So the climate is always changing, will always change. We won't do anything to stop that because there's no climate emergency. But that being said, go and read, educate yourself. And after that, you'll be able to debate. But for me, the fact that I'm here today and having that opportunity to express my ideas and our ideas as a political party, it's good because that's that's what I want to do. And as you know, I told you before, I've been canceled with the mainstream media, and giving me that opportunity. And last time I was here, that was a year ago, like you said. I hope, Alex, that I will be back in the next 6 months. There's so many things that is happening in Ottawa, so I hope I will have another invite, and I can tell you I'll be here.
I'll tell you more. You can be a weekly guest. How about that?
Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Thank you, Glenn. Brothers and sisters, thank you for listening to Alex Saz Show. Please share, subscribe, and don't be afraid to get canceled if you share a show. I think that's the good price to pay. I mean, we're not trying to be Charlie Kirks here, but he paid the price. And I hope nobody else has to pay the same price. And it's important to remember. It's important to remember that freedom, and actually, this is my last thought. The right that we're all talking about. I have rights. It's, in my opinion, the right is entitlement. In our modern society, is entitlement without duty.
You have a point there. So when you're saying, I have a right to that, you must ask yourself, who's having the obligation on the other side to give you that right? When there's a right, there's an obligation. Like, I have a right to have food on my table. Okay, if you think that is a right, who's having the obligation to give you food on your table? That's not a right. That's not a real right.
Yeah, you have a duty to protect your freedom, and the only way you can do it. Well, we don't proclaim revolution here, but don't be afraid to speak up.
Yeah,
don't be afraid to speak up.
And with regards to Mr. Charlie Kirk, I would consider him a modern day hero, a disciple of the Great One. He gave the ultimate sacrifice for what he believed to be true. And one thing as a man I can come away from thinking about Mr. Charlie Kirk is I'd rather be a dead hero than a live coward.
That's a good way to close the show. Thank you, Glenn, for this.
Yeah.
And thank you, Maxime, again. And we'll see you on the next one, brothers and sisters.